Hey, it's Chuck. Welcome in. Athletic reporter Bruce Feldman released his annual top 25 coaches list the other day. And Bruce Feldman's a really well-respected guy. I've always liked him, particularly because he's from California and grew up an Ohio State fan, which I always thought was pretty cool about him, if you didn't know that. But his top 10, I wanted to read off to you because I was thinking, look, Ryan Day hot seat talk has been just accepted as fact. And I kind of want to get into that today. And I'll lay it all out. But let's go over his top 10 list first. So we've got Kirby number 1, obviously. I think we'd all agree on that by a long shot. Dabo's number 2. I don't know, man. He's had success, right? I don't think anybody thinks he's an excellent coach, but he's built a great program that's kind of fallen off. Lance Leipold is 3. Now, those of us who follow Mount Union a bit saw what he did with Wisconsin Whitewater, which was pretty incredible. He basically trumped the Mount Union dynasty and then went on to make a dynasty of his own and won 6 national championships in Division III. And it was really impressive because Mount Union was so far heads and above everybody in Division III for so long, putting pros from Division III. It was just insane. And that was really impressive. So now he went to Buffalo, took them into the top 25, which is really impressive. Buffalo's always a trash program in the MAC. And now what he's doing at Kansas is insane. And he is making $7 million a year. And he wants to stay at Kansas. And I think he's gonna. I really believe that. I didn't at first when he came out and said that. But then he signed this contract, and he's a little bit older. I think he really does want to stay there. Then you got Kalen DeBoer at number 4. We've talked about him extensively. Ryan Day's number 5. Let's talk about who's behind Day. Brian Kelly, James Franklin, Kyle Whittingham, Lincoln Riley, and Mike Norvell. Now, Brian Kelly, I don't know, man. Good coach. I certainly wouldn't trade Ryan Day for Brian Kelly. James Franklin, Kyle Whittingham, no. Lincoln Riley, Mike Norvell, he doesn't get my juices flowing, though I think he's a good coach. But I'm positive that this article is going to get a lot of traffic on his website because of the Lance Leipold at number 3. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with him. I know you guys are because we stay in the weeds on this stuff year round. But that's going to get a lot of traction. And Kalen DeBoer, I think that Alabama fans are really on the fence about him, but they're trying to project like they're not. But they're a little scared. Anyway, we know the 56-8 Ryan Day record, and we know the 39-3 in the Big Ten, but 18-8 against the top 25 and 10-7 in top 10 matchups is pretty stout. And he put that in his article, and I've probably heard 243 times about Ryan Day's loses to Michigan and he's gone. I've also heard people thinking that they were being a little more reasonable and saying, okay, if he loses to Michigan, then he needs to make a deep run in the playoffs or he's gone. So essentially one of the two. Make a deep run in the playoffs or beat Michigan. If you fail at both, out. Gone city, buddy. So I was kind of feeling like I was, after the Cotton Bowl, feeling like, number 2. If you fail at both of those, then you've lost me. And I don't ever say hot seat because I don't know what the administration is thinking, particularly now with the brand new regime in Ted Carter and Ross Bjork. But you're going to lose me, like me, the fan. And I think that I'm a pretty reasonable fan. So my opinion, I think, represents what a lot of other fans think. You fail at both of those, and you're going to lose me. Like, I'm out on you, and it's going to take a whole lot to get me back. So that's kind of what I think when I hear people say he's on the hot seat, because we don't know what the administration's thinking. I polled 200 Buckeyes the other day. I asked the following question. Ryan Day gets fired if he loses to Michigan and doesn't make a deep run. So that's failing at both of those missions. No chance, 31%. Yes, 46%. No, but I would, 11%. And yes, but I wouldn't, 12%. So in totality, 58% think that Ryan Day gets fired if he fails at both the Michigan game and he gets booted early from the playoffs. So I think there's some real movement in that because, like me, I think that number would have been closer to 75% at the end of the Michigan game and at the end of the Cotton Bowl, which meant nothing. But let's keep in mind, they went in saying they wanted to win, and the move he made with the offensive line was not a want-to-win move because it was clear that the change he made in the offensive line was not working 2 series into the game. Extremely clear with Enoch in there. It was horrible. And Matt Jones at center for the first time ever trying to make calls against a defense that was running some stunts, and it wasn't working. That was clear. But he left Carson on the bench the whole time. So, I don't know, man. Were you really playing all out to win? That really irritated me. It really did. I don't care, look, I don't ever like to lose, and I don't ever like to get embarrassed, and I always want to win against the SEC. But when you got guys like Jack, giving it their all and that are all in, if you as the coach are not making the move to put them in the best chance to win, that bothers me for them. And we don't know what happened with the Carson Hinsman situation, but look, maybe he had some bad practices leading up, like Day said, but that couldn't possibly have been the only thing. So I'm not going to say it was the podcast. I don't know, but I just refuse to believe that was the only thing. Because what we watched out of the offensive line that night was really, really just horrific. And he never made the change. Anyway, at that point, I was thinking like the 58% here. If you fail at both of those missions next year, and that's early exit from the playoff, and you lose to Michigan again, I'm out. If you get fired, sayonara. And that's just where I was. So, it got me thinking today about Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer and the amount of reverence that I felt for both of those men. A level of respect for both of them that's usually reserved for people in my life, uncles, my father, grandfather, etc., older neighbor when I was young. Just, men that I looked up to. Guys that if they said to me, hey, get your stuff in order, I took it to heart. And I always trusted that Tress and Urban would make the right adjustment or do the right thing, make the right decision, identify their mistakes and correct them. I trusted that they would always try not to just win every game that they coached at Ohio State, but that they would try to make us proud because that's just the way that they always treated their job, and that they knew that they represented the state. They knew that they represented us. And it felt like they took that very seriously to me. Now, that may be silly to some people. I probably made a lot of it up in my head. I don't know. Maybe you feel that way too. But that's how I always felt. And as mad as they both made me at certain times in their careers, or with certain habits that they had as coaches or tendencies, I never stopped feeling that way about both of those guys, and I still do. I always have. I've always felt that being the head coach at Ohio State University and having the opportunity to field a team that would make their state proud was something that they took incredibly seriously. And that may sound ridiculous. I get it. I'm embarrassed to say it. It sounds weird coming out of my mouth. It's something I've always thought, but I don't think I've ever actually said it to anybody. But I trusted that. I trusted that with them, that they were at their number one destination job of their lives. They were at the pinnacle of their career. And I have never felt that way for Ryan Day. And obviously, it's not all his fault. He's not from Ohio. He didn't come in as a national championship winning coach. He didn't make a 310 days speech. He didn't get up when he took the job and flex at the podium. I mean, we were jazzed like that from day one with both of those two. Ryan Day's always come off to me as an NFL guy. I honestly found nothing more comical than when Urban handed over the sticks, so to speak. And, folks were asking Ryan Day, trying to pin him down about when he was a kid. I mean, what did you think about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry when you were a kid? I'm just like, man, come on, dude. This guy's from New Hampshire. And Ryan Day gave, the best answer he could. Oh, I just remember it always being on. I think, it always being on. Like, come on, man. This dude, they don't even care about college football for the most part in that neck of the country. And I doubt he ever watched an Ohio State-Michigan game from start to finish as a kid. He's just always struck me as an NFL guy. And I've never disliked him as a coach. I think he's a fine guy. I think he's a really nice guy. He's a family man. And I think he's a genuinely good dude. And I think that, pardon me, that his kids that come out of the program have shown us that over and over again. He is a really good dude. But he's not an Ohio guy. I've never felt that I've always kind of felt that if he got, the right opportunity in the NFL, he would really consider it when, never, like Jim Tressel or Urban Meyer, never would they consider that in my mind when they were coaching Ohio State. Like, no, I'm at the pinnacle. I've never quite felt that with Ryan Day. And I tried to force it. You know what? His personality doesn't really pull me in either. I don't feel he doesn't really let us in like they did. So I've just never really felt that way for him. And I tried to force it. I tried to force it because I realized that I like to feel that way about the Ohio State coach. I like to feel that reverence for the Ohio State coach. And whether you recognize it or not, I think a lot of you do too. Because I know for a fact that if Jim Tressel called you up at 2 a.m. and his car was broken down on the side of the road and he said he needed help, you'd get out of bed and you'd go help him. I know you would. And when people say things like calling him a crook and a cheater, it probably bothers you. It bothers the heck out of me. I know it's just crap talk, but when I hear that, I get mad. And I get mad when people talk about Urban too, even though I get it. He's a prickly dude. And if he wasn't from Ohio, I would have hated him when he was at Florida. I didn't. But I probably would have hated him too if I was on the other side. But I get defensive of those guys. And I've never felt that way about Ryan Day. But that kind of started to change a little bit last year. And I don't know if it's just the level of how long he's been here or seeing a little bit more of the competitor in him. The Georgia game, that ferocious outburst. I mean, it started to bring me in a little bit. I started to feel his fire a little. And it started to make me kind of warm up to him throughout the year last year. I think it's a mix of a lot of things. But I just started to identify with him more. He started to feel more like my guy. And I was feeling like he could get it done. And that Michigan game didn't change my mind. He made a few questionable decisions. It was a tough game, though. They played tough, and it wasn't like the previous two at all to me. It didn't feel like that to you either, I'm sure. But at the same time, at the end of the season, it was tough. It was tough. And a lot of folks in our camp were saying, that's it. He's on the hot seat. And like I said, I kind of was like, yeah, he needs to really do something next year. You need to win the Big Ten. You need to beat Michigan. You need to make a run. You just can't fail at everything again. You cannot fail at everything again. So, like I said, 58. I wish I'd have ran that poll before, after the Cotton Bowl, after the game, because I think that 58% would have been a lot higher. And we've had some big changes now with Ross Bjork coming in, and we don't really have any read on how he's feeling or what he would be pushing to do if Ryan Day failed at all those 3 goals. So it's really difficult to say if he's on the hot seat or not, even if he doesn't accomplish those things. But, that was my opinion too. Lose to Michigan, early exit, sayonara, and whether you're fired or not, you're not getting me back unless you win a national championship, because I'm now out on you if you fail at everything again. Particularly with all the positive movement we've had this offseason. In the offseason, I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I don't care how hard I have to hustle for money. I don't care if I make decisions that are going to irritate some people. I don't care if people think I'm an ass. I'm going all in. I'm going to leave no stone unturned. That's what it's felt like to me. He's absolutely stepping on toes, doing things he wouldn't normally do. The NIL has successfully done a 180, and he didn't have everything to do with it, but he had quite a bit to do with it. He's making phone calls, and I just feel like the effort he's put forth to make this happen, bringing in the transfers, going against the grain with play calling. He loves play calling. trying to make the necessary changes and just going all in and doing whatever it takes. It just really felt like I'm going to do everything it takes. I'm going to bring in Julian Sayin even though I'm uncomfortable with it, and it's not something I would normally do. I told Aaron Nolan, you're the quarterback. We're not going to bring in two quarterbacks, and I'm doing it anyway because I feel like it's best for the team. And not that I love that decision, but, that's college football now. That's just what it is if you want to compete for national championships. And he does. And the fire that he's shown through his actions this offseason has really impressed me. I think he's self-reflected and recognized that maybe what people have been saying to him for a long time might actually be right, Calling plays gets his juices flowing, and it's part of the reason he loves football, but it might be holding him back as a coach. So he decided, all right, I'm going to give it up. And we talk about that press conference where he sat next to Eli Drinkowitz, and a lot of people made, it was really funny that Eli was sitting there talking about how great it was since he gave up play calling to be able to be involved in every aspect of the team, and it was really difficult to do, and Ryan sat there kind of stone-faced, almost looked embarrassed. It was pretty funny. Ryan has since come out and said that he had already decided before then, whether we believe that or not, I don't know, but he did it, and it was tough for him to do it. And boy, did he ever find the right fit. We can all agree on that. It probably would have worked out pretty well with Bill O'Brien too. But it couldn't have worked out any more perfect than it is with Chip Kelly. And watching Ryan Day be so much at ease with that decision is really nice to see. Really nice to see. So I just feel like he's, all the stuff that he's hearing, he's just taking it on the chin and he's fighting harder. And the fact that he's doing that makes me want to fight for him. And it makes me feel some type of way about him that I didn't before. I'm really identifying with him. And I'm really liking him a lot more than I have in a long time. I'm kind of getting defensive of him. And that's how I always felt with Urban and Tress. So, I get illogically enraged when people say bad things about Jim Tressel. Like, very, very angry. And I need to check myself sometimes before I respond to something like that. But is he on the hot seat, man? Does he need to beat Michigan or he's gone? Does he need to make a deep run? Is he soft? I'm starting to get irritated when I hear the hot seat talk. Like, it's starting to bother me because I'm just starting to kind of feel that way about him. And I want to know if anybody else is feeling that, because I kind of feel like I'm on an island here. I feel like the anger has calmed down from the loss to Michigan. Because honestly, I don't know, guys. I think most people, 75% at least, would have said at the end of that Michigan game, like, that's it, man. We're out on this guy. But it's calmed down. And time obviously helps that too. That always calms down over time. But that's quite a drop, down to 58%. So it really feels now like he's my guy. I this whole conversation is kind of embarrassing to share. Like, I feel reverence for the Ohio State football coach when it's a very respectable man who I feel is proud to have that job, like Jim Tressel and like Urban Meyer. And I miss that feeling, and I want to feel that for Ryan Day. I want to feel some kind of reverence for the Ohio State coach. And I think that there's a lot of Ohio State fans, the kind that get the hair on the back of their neck stands up the first time they hear "fight the team" in a long time. You know what I mean? That kind of fan, I feel like, likes to feel that kind of reverence for the Ohio State coach, as if he's kind of a representative of all of us. Those of us who just die hard with Ohio State football and feel like it kind of represents, in a way, some of our identity as a state. And I've always felt that way. But as we look, when we talk about the hot seat, at that top 10 list of coaches, guys, I mean, what a pile of dog crap most of them are compared to our guy. I mean, let's be honest here. James Franklin is 2 spots behind him. Mike Norvell's okay. I mean, Brian Kelly, would you trade Ryan Day for Brian Kelly? I wouldn't. Hey, I'm never going to feel any reverence for Brian Kelly. I don't care if that guy won a national championship. What a prickly sucker. You could always bring in an up-and-coming coordinator, elevate him to the head coaching ranks, but you do that at Ohio State or any blue blood, that's always a risky move. We've seen so many fail at other blue bloods going that route. It's got to be a guy who understands how to run a big boy operation if you bring somebody else in. There aren't many that I'd feel confident in. You know, a lot of up-and-coming successful coaches end up taking too long to get acclimated to big-time college football and a big-time program because they don't usually get a ton to learn from their mistakes on the job. Like time, you know, it's short time. You turn fast on those kind of guys. And we're watching an incredibly talented football coach, I think, in Kalen DeBoer, make what I feel are some blunders with some staff moves and recruiting to start down in Alabama. And I don't think he can afford to. He's coming in after the greatest of all time, and they're expecting that machine to keep rolling. The keys were handed over to him with everything intact, and he's done a decent job tearing some of that down. Ryan Day didn't do that. Mark Pantoni's still there. Say what you want about Mick, but he's still there, and continuity matters. We got Sam Petito from Alabama, their director of recruiting, because Kalen DeBoer brought in his guy from Washington that helped him recruit classes in the 40s at Washington, and he gave up Sam Petito. And our guy went and pounced, said, that guy can help my program. I'm going to bring him in. I just feel like Ryan Day is it's finally starting to get for him. He's getting it. He's really getting it. And he's getting aggressive. And he has ran laps around his peers this offseason. Absolutely run laps around them. It's been unbelievable. You know it. We've talked about it a ton. You've listened to it everywhere else. I mean, like, it has felt amazing in an offseason where our rival won a national championship and we should feel hungover and disgusting. I don't feel that way. I have felt fantastic. I've not felt so excited for a season in forever, and it started so quick. 2 minutes after they won that championship, Quinn Shawn tweeted his message he was coming to Ohio State, and ever since then, it's just been good news after good news after good news, and Ryan's got it rolling. And it's made me feel like, man, if he goes into next season and the team looks excellent all year and they don't accomplish those goals, let's say they lose by a field goal at Michigan, and let's say they get ousted in the second round of the playoffs because they don't have a bye. Am I going to give up on them then? Even if they look great all season? Now, if they look like crap like they did last year, if they come out and they're playing in one-possession games with teams they should, be beating by 21, and if they come out to slow starts, 5-6 games into the season, they're still coming out with slow starts, they still don't have it clicking, maybe that's different. But it just feels like to me like I have some more grace for him now. Not just because of the great offseason, but because of like the changes that I've seen him make. And we've talked about it a ton, all of us, on every show and everything we read. Tremendous amount of changes, and changes are hard. And to me, I feel like I've got some more grace for him, where he would have to really embarrass us in the program for me to feel like I want him gone after next year, even if he doesn't accomplish either of those goals, because I just feel like it's coming. And it's only a matter of time now. That's the way I feel about it. It's only a matter of time. Now, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen next year. And turning the page on what he's built now, because he's just now finally got this machine rolling. I mean, he's about to win the recruiting crown. All he's got to do is close this one out, man. It is right there in front of him. The first ever. That matters. I get yelled at when I talk about recruiting. There's a couple guys that get really ticked off about that. I don't know why. They say we focus too much on recruiting and not enough winning, but you need the players to win. And there's a thing that I really believe in this. So DeCorian Moore, the number one wide receiver in the country. He's committed to LSU. He's from Duncanville, Texas. All of a sudden, there's talk about him in Ohio State. And it's real talk, and it's coming from everywhere. It just got me thinking, like, this dude's the number one wide receiver in the country. LSU and Ohio State, they're both considered kind of wide receiver U. You look since 2000, I think I saw 71,000 yards for wide receivers at Ohio State, 67 or something for LSU, and then the next one was 10,000 below, and then 5,000 below that. So heads and shoulders for wide receiver production, LSU and Ohio State. Both could be considered wide receiver U. I give the nod to us. You probably do too, but they're close. But this kid is right next to LSU, and he's looking at Ohio State saying, that's where the best wide receiver goes. The best wide receiver goes to Ohio State. Well, we saw for so many years when kids come down to it between Alabama and Ohio State, we lost almost every damn time. And I really believe so much of it has to do with, well, when things are even, Steven, it's something small that flips it. And the best kids just go to Alabama. So I guess that's where I'll go. We can be that program. It's just going to take a couple recruiting crowns, and we're right there in position to do it, and we can keep it rolling because we are now the IT program. I firmly believe for the young kids, that is what it feels like to them right now. We are the IT program. Somehow it's happened like that without winning a national championship, which is usually what it takes to become that. But seizing the moment is really important, and I think it's very important. And I also want to add that DeCorian Moore had a quote today. He's down to 4 schools. Now, this is a kid who's committed to LSU, but he said, I'm down to 4 schools. Still committed to LSU, but I'm just talking to 4 more now, or 4 total. So he's talking to LSU, he's talking to Texas, he's talking to Oregon, and he's talking to Ohio State. And he had a quote about each of the schools. LSU, they're good with injury recovery. That really impresses him about LSU. Texas, they got a good relationship with his mom at Texas. That's important to him. Oregon, he said they're not going to stop. And that's who they are now. They are aggressive as heck. Ohio State, first thing out of his mouth. Devin Sanchez, the first thing out of his mouth. Devin Sanchez keeps coming hard. Devin Sanchez is after this dude. Devin Sanchez wants that 2025 recruiting crown. And if it happens, he will have played a massive part in it because he has been recruiting hard because he wants to come in and be a member of a transcendent class. And I think that's really important. And I think that kid is awesome. And he hasn't even stepped foot on campus. I mean, we're in store for a great one with Devin Sanchez. I mean, when you are a leader like that before you even step foot on campus, it's just going to be a tremendous experience. I think we're all going to really enjoy it. So I think it's important, and I think the recruiting crown is going to be an important thing to win. And that brings up the final change that I think we're going to see out of Ryan Day, and that is no more 21 or 22-man classes. I think he's going to be more in the 26 range. You know, Georgia and Bama forever have been in the 28, 27 range because they're processing the lower part of their roster, which is seedy. I get it, but it doesn't even need to be done so much like that anymore because so many of these guys are now transferring out when they don't get playing time without any, you don't even say anything to them. They're not playing anymore. They're out of here. And if they're not good enough to go to a bigger school, they're going to Cincinnati and they're going to play like a Kai Stokes or whatever, and that's cool. That's good for them. And that's the way it should be. Go play. You know, I don't know why anybody would want to sit and ride the pine for 4 years. Go play somewhere. You came to play football. I get it. You love the Buckeyes. But go play. And we're going to need to sign that 26, 27-man class to capitalize. But right now, our player average is like a 95.9, which is just absurd. The only one close is LSU, and there's a big gap under there. We got 8 guys signed right now. We got a crystal ball from Jamie French. receiver who decommitted from Alabama. Nobody has gained more from Alabama since this happened than us. And the fact that he decommitted from Alabama and immediately was interested in Ohio State. Naeem Offord from Birmingham, committed to Ohio State. It just kind of shows you the vibe and the feeling. We got Vernell Brown, got a crystal ball. He's a receiver out of Orlando, top 100-ish ranked receiver. Absolute stud, just a crazy athlete. You watch his highlight film, and he's just running for days. It doesn't even look like they snapped the ball. You turn it on, the kid runs, and he never stops. It's awesome. And you got DeCorian Moore interested, but unlike previous classes that have been so wide receiver heavy, and I know a lot of people are wide receiver fatigued, and here I am talking about 3 wide receivers right off the rip. But there is so much more to this class. You know, we got a stud lineman in Carter Lowe, committed already. There's a whole lot more on the horizon, and I got the offensive recruiting show essentially laid out. I'm going to do that tomorrow. The following day, we'll do defense. But it's exciting. I'm pumped for it. But the point of the show today was I just wanted to say that I have more grace for Ryan Day as it goes into next year and we talk about expectations for what we're thinking is coming next season, what we're expecting, and what happens if we don't get there. For me, there's some nuance to it now. And what I mean by that is if they look good, if they represent what we think they should represent, if they show on the field that they're not like they were last year, and they come up a little short on a few of the goals, I'm going to have some grace, I think. We'll see. But I don't think he's on the hot seat with the administration. Anyway, that's my thought. So that's my show today. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Jug on Bucks out.